Hello YouTube, this is Tex Reefer welcoming you to the first video in a series that I call the NewYorkSteelo Challenge. The goal of this series is ultimately to follow NewYorkSteelo and his advice in this 75-gallon rebuild, closely modeled after his 90-gallon rebuild video series that he has out there. If you guys haven't heard of him, go check him out, learn as much as you can. He has a lot of information there. He's very knowledgeable about the hobby. NewYorkSteelo on YouTube and Facebook. Also, NewYorkSteelo.com. Check him out. Like and subscribe to his videos. He's going to be the guide through this rebuild process. Now, I, like many of you, made a lot of bad decisions when I set up my first tank, and this is the result of those bad decisions. I went out, didn't do any research, didn't have any understanding of the chemistry that was involved, the work that was involved, any of the mechanics of how the system actually works, how livestock interacts with each other, water flow levels. I didn't understand anything when I jumped into this hobby. Went out, spent a bunch of money, threw it together. What you're looking at here is the result. Now, I have since gone and discovered NewYorkSteelo, done a bunch of supplemental research in addition to him, done a lot of note taking, a lot of video watching, started reading a few books, again, supplement materials, trying to get educated in this hobby, and now it is time to start the process over. We're going to use NewYorkSteelo as our guide. Following him closely, we're going to be successful in this hobby, and I'm going to walk you through how we're going to do that step by step. So what went wrong with this tank? Well, like I said before, I didn't have any understanding at the time of the chemistry that was involved in actually maintaining good water for a lot of the animals that I was keeping. The only thing I really maintained was the salinity or specific gravity. That was essentially it. Didn't maintain anything dealing with pH or any of the metals, magnesium and calcium levels, nothing like that, and became a algae farm, essentially is all this tank became. Now, the biggest problem that I ultimately had was not understanding the water flow for the tank. What we're looking at here is the ProFlex sump refugium and all of its glory. You can see this is a complete nasty system. The water is absolutely awful. And the external Iwaki Japanese motor 1200 gallon per hour external pump. Now, that pump is where a lot of the problems ultimately started, not understanding the water flow through the system. Every resource that you really look up talks about the water flow that you actually need going through the tank itself. They never really talk about the water flow that you need going through the sump, and I made that same mistake, not taking the time and knowing to look that information up. This particular pump, being 1200 gallons per hour, is way too much water flow to go through the sump, as well as the piping for the returns and feeds for this tank. It's just too much water, it's too much pressure. Now, that also caused a leak within the piping. That was the ultimate death of this system. That's why this sheet is down here to collect the water as I was draining things for the leak that it started shooting water everywhere down here. I have since ordered some new equipment. This is Thursday. Some of the new equipment is going to start to arrive on Monday. And we're going to go ahead, we're going to replace this external Iwaki pump with a Eheim pump, as well as we're going to take out this sump refugium and replace it with the trigger system refuge that I should have bought in the very beginning. And the main reason why I'm going with the trigger systems closely models the reason why NewYorkSteelo purchased his is simply the third stage. Now, this middle beam really hides it, but the third stage on this essentially starts right here and goes over just a few inches. It doesn't give you a lot of room to put any of your equipment. So I couldn't have a very good protein skimmer. I couldn't put any type of internal pumps in there. It's not really enough room to do anything with. The refuge size is okay. It's probably too small realistically for this size tank, despite what the manufacturer actually says. Don't have anything negative to say about the first stage, but we're going to replace that so we can actually put in some better pumps and some better protein skimmers into this system. Again, that will start arriving on Monday. We'll do an unboxing and video review of all the equipment that will ultimately go into this system. We're going to replumb everything. I'll document how everything ultimately is going to be set up. I do have a Reef Keeper Lite system, as well as some of the probes that go with it, which is one of the benefits of the trigger system sump that I purchased. It has room for those particular probes, makes it very simple to do. Now in here you can see that we do have a 4-inch deep sand bed that I actually have to admit I thought the deep sand bed was pretty successful. It's a little bit hard to see that here because a lot of the algae and things that are currently in the tank, but I did seed it and ordered a lot of critters online to seed the deep sand bed. It does have a ton of worms, spaghetti worms, bristle worms, all kinds of fun life going through. You can see a lot of the tunnels, bubbles, different things going through this particular sand bed. It has since fallen apart, of course. Now on the rebuild, I'm not going to go with the deep sand bed, unlike NewYorkSteelo, and that has absolutely nothing to do with my opinion on deep sand beds. I absolutely love them, but it really comes down to the type of animals and the goals that I have for this particular tank. Ultimately, I'll do a little bit of a larger grain size. I won't be going with oolite sugar fine sand. I'll go with 2 inches of a coarser sand that I'll do a video breakdown when I actually purchase it. And the reason for that is some of the animals that I want to keep, like a goby, a Watchman goby, pistol shrimp combo, disturb the sand, and that is going to be detrimental to a deep sand bed, as well as some of the starfish and things that I want in here. I don't want a sand sifting star, but some of the others, all they do is really comb through and dig through your sand, rendering the deep sand bed completely useless and doing harm to the system. So because of that desire, we're just not going to use a deep sand bed. This is ultimately going to be a reef tank. It will have minimal fish in here. I will have my clownfish in here. If we were to turn to the side here, you can see my containment tank, relatively new containment tank. You can see some of my crabs still wandering around down there in the bottom left. I do have a surviving clownfish here that he has since lost his mate. This is going to be the male. There you go. There you can see him. The female did die. She was much bigger than he was. They also lost their anemone a long time ago while the tank was starting to collapse. So he's kind of freaked out, and so he stays back here behind this filter. Now guys, I understand that this particular tank is not adequately set up to house these animals long term. I get that. There will be additional equipment added to this tank to properly maintain these animals while the rest of the system is being rebuilt and cycling. So don't worry about that. We will take care of these animals. Now, in the next video, we're actually going to start the process. We're going to follow NewYorkSteelo and how we're going to clean the tank. Over here, just like his video outlines, is going to be our distilled white vinegar that we'll be using to actually break down a lot of the algae and salinity and calcium deposits that are in the tank. The next phase will be cycling through with this Clorox bleach that will actually sanitize this particular system. If we were to look back and look closer on the glass, you can see, if the light will let me here, you can see a lot of the buildup and a lot of the gunk that is built up around here. Sorry guys, the lighting is extremely powerful here. But you can kind of get the idea here of how much crap is actually attached to the glass and what it looks like. You can see down here in the refuge, you can see a lot of the salt creep and a lot of the mineral buildup down here better. So that's what the vinegar is going to do, and then we'll come in with the Clorox bleach and really kill everything else that is living in the tank when we start it over. From there, we'll go ahead and put in the new sand. I have yet to order live rock. I haven't decided what type of live rock I ultimately want to go with. We'll add the live rock. We'll start the cycling of the tank. I do have chemicals that are on top of the server there on the right that we will monitor very closely, all the different levels, and I'll document that as we go. Once the tank is officially cycled, then we'll go ahead and start adding my life that we currently have back to the tank. We'll get my clownfish a new mate. Hopefully they will host a new anemone, and then we'll start adding some of the actual corals that I want to add to the tank once the anemone has ultimately settled. So a lot of new videos coming in each step of this rebuild process, product reviews, going over some of the mistakes that I made. The piping down here sprung a leak. Why did that happen? We'll talk about all those things. So new videos coming. Be sure to check out NewYorkSteelo. Like and subscribe to his videos. Please like and subscribe mine if you find them beneficial. I've not lost my interest in this hobby. I hope if you made some of the same mistakes that I've made, that you have not lost your interest in this hobby. This is going to be a fun ride. Thanks for joining me. See you in the next video.